Princess Dracula, Book 1, Part 4, Special Online Series. Author John Patrick Kennedy.
The man behind him held her arms tight. The ones on either side grabbed a leg and pulled her feet from the ground. She screamed again and bucked her hips. The fourth man grabbed her around the waist to keep her still. The men on either side pulled her legs apart. Her father stepped forward. "No, please, father, please!" Roxandra begged as he raised his hand. "Please, no, please, what are you doing?"
"She is intact," Vlad Dracula said, his voice cold and hard. "Take her in."
The four dragged her into the other chamber. The light was dim, coming from the flickering flames of candles spaced out along the walls. A pentacle, 12 feet across, painted in red, took up the middle of the floor. Roxandra tried to understand what she was seeing, but had no time. They shoved her onto the floor and pinned her arms and legs. One man grabbed something out of her sight, and a moment later, cold metal clamped down on her wrist. The man on the other side did the same thing. Then all four worked to pin her legs to the ground and spread them wide so they could chain them too. She lay spread eagle on her back. The ground was cold and hard, and the chains would not give, no matter how much she pulled on them. Her face grew hot with shame that overcame her fear. Her breasts, her legs, even her privates were on display for the 5 men in the room. The 4 men each took place at a different point of the pentacle, outside the circle. Her father walked around it, lighting the black candles before taking a place at the top of the star, above Roxandra's head. "Father!" Roxandra begged. "Please, father, what is happening? What are you doing to me? Have I offended you? Please."
"Let us begin," Vlad said, not looking at her.
He raised his right arm and took out a knife. With a single, swift cut, he opened his palm. A moment later, blood dripped from his hand into the circle. The other 4 men did the same, and blood pooled in small puddles in front of each.
"Let the circle be sealed by our blood," Vlad said. "Let it be our bond and our protection, that the one we summon will hear our call and obey our demands." "Let it be so," the other 4 shouted in unison. "Let the girl be our sacrifice. Let her virginity be our offering. Let it appease the one who is to come," Vlad continued. Again, the other 4 spoke as one. "Let it be so!"
"No!" Roxandra thrashed on the floor, desperate to break the chains that held her. "Please! No, I don't want this! No!"
Her father's voice rose over hers. "Let the chant commence, and let us bend our will to the darkness, that it may aid us in the days to come. Let it be so."
Roxandra screamed, long and loud, as the men chanted. The words were Latin and Greek and other, more guttural languages, all running together to make a deep and dirty sound, with a rhythm like a gravedigger's shovel scraping against rocky earth. The men kept their dripping hands held out, their eyes forward, and repeated the words over and over and over. Roxandra's screams faded to tears and wails. No one would come to help her. No one would save her. She tried to pray, but fear jumbled the words into nonsense. The 5 candles in the corners flared higher than should have been possible. All 5 men stared but did not stop chanting. The flames changed colour from bright yellow to deep red, as if the blood on the floor had been turned into light. They flickered and danced, though there was no wind, and threw monstrous shadows over the walls of the cave. The room grew darker. From the ground around Roxandra came a thick black smoke that stank of sulphur and rotten meat. It made her cough and choke. The lines of the pentacle began to glow the same deep red as the candles. The men's voices rose, higher and louder, and the chanting grew faster and faster. In the midst of it, her father's voice bellowed out.
"Dark One, I command thee, come forth!"
A terrible noise, like stone tearing itself apart, echoed through the chamber and shook the cave walls. In the pentacle, inches above Roxandra's body, a black hole appeared. It oozed darkness and drowned out the red light of the candles and glow from the pentacle. The air turned so cold that it froze and burned at once, leaving Roxandra's flesh blistered. Lightning, as black as the hole itself, spewed forth, bouncing off the ceiling and echoing around the chamber. The force of the thunder that followed sent the 5 men flying through the air to crash into the cavern walls. Thunder rolled through the room, shaking the ground hard enough that its convulsions slammed into Roxandra's back, bruising and battering her. There was another clap of thunder and more black lightning that blinded Roxandra with its blazing darkness. And when she could see again, a tall, naked, black-winged woman stood above her. The creature's white skin shone against the darkness. A waterfall of black hair fell from her head to her backside. Her breasts were large and as pale as the rest of her, with white nipples that pointed out hard like diamonds. Her eyes glowed red, ringed with ebony lashes. Her mouth opened wide, revealing a row of long, pointed teeth. Her fingers ended in golden talons that looked capable of tearing a man's head off with a single swipe. She was a nightmare of beauty and ferocity, with a perfection of feature and line not found on Earth. Roxandra was stunned out of fear for a moment. That such a creature could exist, that the nuns' embroidered tales of demons were not only true but were a bare and pathetic next to the real thing. This demon, this queen. The creature looked around the room, her gaze cold and sinuous as a snake's. Then she gazed down at Roxandra. Her fiery eyes pierced Roxandra's skull. In an instant, Roxandra knew that this creature could see her thoughts, unveil her secrets and memories. The eyes felt like a tongue, raspy and warm, licking the corners of her mind. Tremors shook her body, and more tears rolled down her face, though she couldn't make a sound. This ravishment didn't hurt, but it left her feeling more helpless than she had when the men were stripping and binding her. The demon woman's eyes roamed over Roxandra's naked flesh, lingered at her breasts and her privates. Then she raised them to the men around the room. She smiled. Her voice was soft and melodious and as cold as the darkness she had stepped from. What mortal was so foolish as to summon me? Roxandra stared up at the demon, mesmerized. Shiny black garments seemed to have a mind of its own on this demon. One moment she was clothed, the next she wasn't. One moment fabric was on her arm, the next it would vanish. Even a necklace was there one moment, gone the next. Her body was flawless. Was she a goddess? The creature looked back at her and smirked. So you think I am beautiful, little sacrifice?
Dread demon! Vlad Dracula pushed himself off the cave floor, then stood on shaky legs. I have summoned you in accordance with the laws of heaven and hell, in ritual with blood and sacrifice. I have gathered men of stout heart and valor, and we have spoken the words of binding. You are in our control and power, less against what we have wrought.
The demon's left eyebrow rose, but she said nothing. Vlad took his place atop the pentacle. His men, still shaken from the force of the lightning, rose and staggered to their own places.
Hear me, demon, Vlad said, voice booming. Hear the bargain we will strike. See the sacrifice before you. We have need of power. Power to defeat the infidel who defiles Christian lands. Power to rule Wallachia and to protect it from those who would conquer it.
The demon's wings vanished into her back and she knelt beside Roxandra. Did you know you were to be the sacrifice girl? Did you come here of your own volition? Or were you dragged from your home and brought here against your will? Roxandra couldn't speak. The long, sharp teeth of the demon's smile were far too close.
Demon! Vlad's voice rang through the chamber. Do not seek to distract us, nor to deceive us. You will do as you are bidden, and you will give what is asked. You will bestow us this power, and in return, you may take the virginity and life of that girl who lies before you.
Oh, may I? Sarcasm, thick and viscous, coated the words. The demon touched Roxandra's face, letting her finger trace the line of her jaw. You are pretty, and a virgin, your disgusting father says, only regarding men, I am guessing, from the smell on you. Her eyes pierced Roxandra's again, and memories welled to the surface of Roxandra's mind. Her face turned red, and she tried to look away from the demon. The demon cocked her head and smiled. What sweet friends you have, little one. As to virgins, I prefer boys. There's nothing like the face of a young man when he realizes he won't be the one in charge. Smoke rose. The creature stood. Its flesh blurred and flowed, and its appearance morphed from a beautiful female form to a scary male one. Its hair color went from black and white and vice versa. Then there were two heads instantly shifting genders. Roxandra's eyes went wide with horror. Both heads bore no expression. It was easily the most disturbing thing Roxandra had ever seen.
They all scream, of course.
Even the ones who like it.